Howdy, folks. Welcome to Howling After Dark Christmas Spirits. Pretty cool show tonight. Paranormal occurrences involving Christmas. Good stuff. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. There will not be a show Wednesday night as it is Christmas Eve and my birthday. So happy birthday to me and Merry Christmas, everybody. So there you go. Now let me just log into our chat really quickly. As well as bring up some articles. But I found some really cool stuff actually is going on. A TV show American Hauntings, I think it's called, is they're doing an investigation at the house that was used in the movie A Christmas Story. I'd like to apologize about the technical difficulties we had at the very beginning of the show. I'm not entirely sure. I may have to. Hold on a second, folks. Apologize for the delay. Working out some technical stuff. 1 second. I keep forgetting that with this, because I have a chat room on my website, gosselpara.weebly.com, and I keep forgetting that every time I broadcast, I have to re-embed new code. And I forgot it did. So I got to do that real quick. This should be fixed now. And I misspelled Christmas. That's lovely. It's Crossmas spirits, I guess. Anyways, so yeah, let me just pull this up really quick because I found this story and I thought it was pretty cool. But let me make sure. Okay. So I guess we're good now. And hi, Jerry. Thanks for tuning in as always. Yeah, A Christmas Story House under Paranormal Investigation by TV show America's American Haunts. It's right here. It's a house actually right here in Cleveland. Um, let's see if this thing will ever load and let me scroll down. Cleveland, Ohio. Every year, thousands visit the A Christmas Story house and museum, and this weekend, American Haunts is making a special stop. This will be the seventh episode for the paranormal TV show. Here, what investigators have planned for the weekend and their first impressions of the popular Cleveland home. Let's see. Co-host and lead investigator Dave Rode and Craig Gazzetti will search for abnormal activities lurking around the home. Rode and Gazzetti will hold a meet and greet for the public on Saturday from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the Christmas Story House and Museum. They are the first paranormal show to be granted permission to film at the location. Other than that, it doesn't have any more information about it. I do know that it's haunted. I mean, I've heard stories. Um, God, like for a couple of years now, I've heard stories about this place. But there's like I've never been there. I don't know of any like specific like details like what they get there. I do know that one person that told me about it, they were hearing like a lot of like laughter and stuff. Like it lives up to its name. It's not like there. I mean, there is one area of the house that is supposedly got something dark, but it's kind of up for debate in my book because I think like I've said before, I think if you're looking for negative, that's what you're going to find. Um, so other than that, I don't know that I agree with that. But anyways, on to our next story, uh, which I thought was pretty cool. It's too bad my cousin and investigator Reagan can't be here because for work. She would love this story because it has to do with UFOs. Um, there's a particular UFO that I'm actually about to share with you. Um, I'm going to pull up this video right on our screen so you'll be able to see it. I'm just going to play it for you and let it tell the story. But they call it the Santa sleigh UFO. And when you see it, you'll get why I think. So without further ado, here we go. Now, as you can see there, The bigger UFO almost looks like it's Santa's sleigh getting pulled by reindeer. I mean, just like the configuration of it, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, but the story reads, back up. Uh, we see a shape shifting UFO was filmed over Michigan on Christmas Eve 2011. Witnesses claimed it was similar to the one that appeared over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem earlier in the same year. Again, video was recorded. Now, what I find to be interesting about this is not the first time nor the last time this particular UFO is played out. I think I just lost. Okay, can you still hear me? Here, let's. Oh, that's why. Okay. Um, I thought I lost the broadcast there for a second. So, and this just recently happened again. This time, uh, it happened like up in Alaska, um, just a little bit north of Juneau, and what's interesting about it is that the person that actually documented it this time wasn't like a ufologist. I mean, I think he I think he believes in UFOs, but I don't think he's a ufologist like in practice. He's actually a scientist. He's in Alaska. I think he's either a climatologist or a geologist, perhaps. But he studies like the uh, breakdown of the ice caps and stuff. And he lives in Alaska. And uh, he was actually outside filming the sky this particular night because he was waiting for the aurora borealis, the northern lights, when he got this just like 30 minutes before the aurora started. And he even commented on how much it reminded him of these two other cases that he didn't really follow it too closely, but like for whatever reason it stuck in his head. I think it's the photograph, honestly, is what captured his attention. Anyways, so I think that's a pretty cool thing. Another UFO. This is a separate UFO. It's called the Rendlesham UFO. Is perhaps the most famous English UFO event. It took place over Christmas, beginning on Christmas Eve, 1980, when U.S. Air Force personnel had sightings and contact with the mysterious pyramid-shaped object in the forest of Rendlesham. They claim the object reappeared several times over the Christmas period, and uh, U.S. officers involved have audio recordings of the events, drawings and photographs of the incidents. They claim the craft left in the ground, as well as numerous eyewitness testimony from the soldiers involved. It remains the most controversial and compelling UFO sighting on British soil ever. That is quite a claim. And yet again, it happened on Christmas. So interesting stuff. Um, I have a lot to say about these next two stories, and I think you'll understand why when I read them. December 2012, George Knapp, a famous American paranormal journalist who has extensively researched and written several books on UFOs, has revealed he has seen the reported Dr. Ketchum evidence and research that, if true, will confirm beyond doubt that the Sasquatch is in fact a living, breathing animal. The researchers collected samples from all over the country, including the corpses of two Sasquatches shot and killed by a hunter. He signed a non-disclosure document which forbids him to talk about it, but he promises that this Christmas the world is about to get its best Christmas present ever. I mean, this is like George friggin' Knapp. Okay, for those that don't know, I'm sure Jeremy in our chat room knows this. Yeah, exactly. Uh, he said something in the chat I was referring to, but I'm sure he knows this. George Knapp was one of the hosts of Coast to Coast for quite a while, actually. Um, I don't know. I don't know if he was like a alternate host to George Norrie, or George Norrie replaced him. Honestly, I haven't followed Coast to Coast as closely as I have Darkness Radio, but regardless, I know George Knapp. Well, I don't know him, but I know about him. And this guy's no joke. I mean, like, he's renowned. I mean, this guy shares a stage, or used to at least share a stage regularly with the likes of the Warrens and Hans Holzer. So the guy definitely knows his stuff. So when he is sitting there saying that this is quite possibly the absolute proof of Sasquatch existing, I think people should take notice of that. Now, we're going to come back to that in a bit, but I want to get to this next story first, because this one I'm going to have a lot to say about. Ghost Lady. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall was first recorded as a visual apparition by Lucia C. Stone at a gathering at the hall in 1835. Two guests reported seeing her the night before and remarked on the brown dress, hence her nickname. She is believed to be the ghost of Lady Dorothy Walpole, wife of Charles Townshend, notorious for his violent temper. She has been reported over the years by numerous people, but she is most famous because she is the first photographed ghost ever. She was photographed in 1936. It was published in County Life, uh, which was sent to they County Life sent two photographers to depict the house, but when they developed the photos, they discovered an image on the staircase, which to this day has not been disproven. It has become the most famous paranormal image of all time because it was the first, and it has been so hard to disprove. Now I'm going to do a screen share here so that you can see this picture. It is mind blowing. that this was captured in 1936 and is yet to be disproven. It's gone through the ringer. It has been examined by modern day video editing and monitoring technology, and they have not been able to disprove it. So, as you can see here, this figure right here in the staircase. I mean, there's no denying that there's something there. Number one, and number two, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because I want to believe. Who knows? But it just looks to me that it is definitely undeniably female. That's my impression. People are entitled to their own beliefs or whatever, but there you have it. And it's crazy to me. It truly is that was taken in 1936. This was taken on a normal camera. People, they didn't have IR. They didn't have full spectrum. It was a normal flash camera, 1936 style, that happened to capture this. That is amazing to me. It's a full-bodied apparition that I'm looking at here, and it was captured on a normal camera. That's crazy. I'm still going to go back to that Sasquatch stuff, but I want to do these other stories first. Christmas spook. On Christmas Day 1980, ghost hunters spent time at Chingle Hall in Whittingham, England, where they recorded rapping noises, saw shapes moving across the walls, and heard sounds emanating from an old priest hiding hall, as well as significant temperature decreases. They had come to the hall because of its reputation for poltergeist and visions of monks scaring visitors. There had also been reports of a long-haired man walking outside a window. Problem was the window was 12 feet off the ground. There had been several more investigations over the years, with images of blue and white lights appearing in photographs. In 1985, the sound of bricks being moved also were heard from the priest's hole, and witnesses saw a human hand moving them. Both the sounds and a shadowy figure were caught on audio and photographs. That's crazy. And this is Christmas Day 1980. Like, once again, in 1980, they didn't really have infrared. They didn't have any of the tools that we have now. So, like, even being able to capture any of it is pretty amazing. The fact that they caught all of it tells me that not only is the place haunted, it's haunted and they're not trying to hide it. And by they, I mean the spirits in question. They're not trying to hide at all. They're obviously very open. They probably want to communicate very badly. It would be my thought. Um, Next one, Baby Spirit. Hazel Castle in Leeds, England, is a popular getaway spot for people, but it has a rich history of sightings and strange happenings. Over the Christmas period in 2003, a guest complained of a crying baby keeping her awake, except there were no babies staying in any of the adjoining rooms. A cleaner thought she saw another cleaner in a bathroom mirror and had a conversation, but there was no one there. The ghost of a priest has been seen walking from the direction of the Great Hall into the library, following the same route as it would have when the castle was first built. And I'm going to screen share again because I want you to see what this castle looks like. I would go there just because I like castles and it looks awesome. So there you go. I mean, there you go. That to me is gorgeous. I mean, truly. Yeah. Going back to the George Norrie thing, Jeremy Henry, uh, our most loyal listener, actually, he's tuned into every single show, even when he's the only one in chat. He's always there. So major props to him. But even he said, going back to the George Norrie story about Sasquatch, is yep, he's pretty big to come out with that. He does his homework, which is absolutely true. He doesn't just make blanket statements, this guy. Not at all. So, yeah, when he says it, you can be pretty sure that, you know, something's up. This next one actually reminds me of somewhat recent episode of Ghost Adventures because it seemed to be like a recurring theme. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. The Devil. Bruce Hall driveway in Suffolk, England is said to have a visitor every Christmas Eve. When a coach pulled by headless horses arrives at the front door, legend has it that inside the wall of the hall in a bedroom cupboard is the hoof print of the devil himself in solid brick. Another tale tells of a window that opens by itself, even when locked. And this is Bruce Hall. This is another castle. Um, I'm not going to screen share it because it's actually a very small picture, and you wouldn't probably see it very well, anyways. But needless to say, it is another castle, and it's actually quite large. Now, the thing about it is, Ghost Adventures, not too long ago, um, did a special like 2 hour episode where they went to Ireland, and in two of the castles there, or two of the homes there, anyways. The theme was that, and it happened twice, actually, almost exactly the same story. At the hall that I forget the name of it. The name of the place escapes me, but it's on a hill in Ireland, and it used to be the Irish home of the Hellfire Club, who supposedly um, had a visitor there one night when members at the club were playing poker. They had a stranger came in and sat in on a game, and uh, one of the members dropped a card, and when he went to reach down to get it, he saw that the stranger had hooved feet and knew that it was in fact the devil. Um, and then like lights blew out and the devil disappeared. And then yet another story in Ireland, very similar, was there was another home. It was a big home, a manor house, and almost exactly the same story. That this man came to stay with him, and the daughter fell in love with the man and gave herself to him, and she got pregnant by him. And then uh, they were playing cards one night, and same thing. She dropped a card and saw his feet and freaked out, and he disappeared, and she ended up killing herself, or so the story goes. Um, I don't know if I necessarily believe that. Uh, I have a hard time with the whole devil thing for reasons I'm not going to get into right now. But yeah, so either way, it's still interesting stuff. This one is very cool to me. Um, Royal Haunting. Anne Boleyn's second wife of King Henry VIII is also given to appearing on Christmas Eve. She has been spotted on numerous occasions walking the grounds of her home, Hever Castle in Kent, England. It is said that she walks calmly across the bridge away from the castle at Christmas, and was famously one of the executed wives of the infamous King Henry. As the doctor once said, she lost her head, poor thing. But what's interesting is, uh, I think I think he had 5 different wives, 5 or 6. I don't remember how many he went through, but he went through quite a few and executed almost all of them. And I think out of the bunch, he's the only one that is said to haunt anywhere. Um, and I think that the reason for that is because she actually really loved him. It wasn't just a marriage of convenience. It wasn't just, like an arrangement like most royal weddings back then were. I think she genuinely loved the guy. And he was so paranoid that executing wives, like he believed all of his wives were trying to kill him. So he would have them executed. And I think she truly loved the guy and just not not worth loving somebody like that. I mean, I think if he hadn't been royalty, he would have never gotten away with it. This one's actually kind of funny. Scares the dickens out of you. Nobody told a Christmas ghost story quite like Charles Dickens. He set the bar for how Christmas ghosts are written. People reported seeing him walk past his old home in Rochester, England. Dickens wanted to be buried here when he died, but public demand saw him laid to rest instead at Westminster Abbey. So maybe he finally got to get back to the town he loved so well and the season which he made so famous. Here's what I find to be funny about that. Like he's famous for writing, of course, A Christmas Carol, which is about uh, Scrooge and him being visited by 3 ghosts. And ghosts were like a reoccurring theme in almost every Charles Dickens novel he ever wrote. There was a ghost in there somewhere. I think he was probably, for his time, a paranormal enthusiast. Of course, he couldn't be as open about it as we are because not only was it kind of taboo, like it was for so long, you could get into a lot of trouble. Um, I mean, not to mention the fact that they could probably lock you away in a lunatic asylum, which back then was really not a place to be. Um, Aside from that, there were laws uh, preventing spiritualists in England back then. So, like, really not, a good thing to be. So I find that to be amusing within itself. But then you add into that the fact that he was kind of a victim of his own success because he wanted nothing more than to be buried in his hometown of Rochester, England. But he was so popular that that public demand made it so that he was buried in Westminster Abbey, miles and miles and miles and miles away from his home. So it kind of makes sense that he would actually haunt Rochester, England, since he's not buried there, which is kind of ironic because he is, after all, a ghost of Christmas past. This one has a video, and you may have seen this video, you may not have. Um, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. When I first initially saw this, I thought it was fake. I have examined it and re-examined it and re-examined it. I'm now of the opinion that it is very real. Um, I put this thing through the ringer, and it looks genuine to me. That's the only way I can say it. This is the door slamming specter. Hampton Court Palace in London delivered the most famous piece of paranormal footage that no one has been able to prove a hoax. Security guards were bemused by the amount of closed doors being opened after they had done their rounds and closed them. However, CCTV caught the culprit, resulting in footage widely confirmed as the best proof of a haunting in the world. The footage below shows closed doors again being thrown over by an invisible force. Then, out of nowhere, a robed figure appears and pulls them closed. No one can identify him, and there was no one in the building at the time of the occurrence. Some have speculated that it is Cardinal Wolsey, one-time friend of Henry VIII. So I'm going to go ahead and share this video. It is astounding.
This is one of the security cameras at Hampton Court, captured on tape about 3 weeks ago. Is this a ghost?
Right, now what this is the security staff heard an alarm go off, which actually meant that the fire doors were open. They rushed to it and there was nothing there. The doors were closed actually when they got there. Now we'll go back through this again. On CCTV camera, but not seen by anybody out of the naked eye, was this. Can we see it again, please, now? Okay.
There are other CCTV cameras around Hampton Court, particularly after that fire. Nobody was seen approaching this particular spot. You don't see the doors actually being pushed open by hand. Figure strides forward and slams them shut. As you can see, and close-ups have shown that it appears to be dressed in medieval clothes, similar to what Henry VIII would have worn. The key thing is it happened 3 days on the run. That's the only time that a figure actually appeared on the camera, and the other CCTV cameras and witnesses around saw them.
So there you have it. I mean, like, at first, oh, and hi, Ben. Welcome. Um, I just happened to look in chat and Ben is in the house. Yeah. Anyways, so here's the thing. When I first saw that video, I thought probably what a lot of you think, that yeah, the doors open, there was apparently nobody there, but then the robed figure was just some guy in a costume. Except there's a problem with that theory. I've actually seen this video. I actually copied it basically onto my computer and examined it using my programs and zoomed in. And what I noticed was that while he does appear very solid on this video, when you zoom in, you can actually see through him. So I encourage you to, check this video out for yourself. You can find it on YouTube. Um, Look up the Hampton Court Palace slamming door ghost, and you'll find it. Or Hampton Court Ghost CCTV, and you'll find it. Now, what's interesting about it, though, is that this happened during Christmas time. Sorry, got distracted there for a second. Now, this next little bit, these are actually stories that were sent in to a website from people all around the world. This first one's called The Christmas Church Ghost. I never really believed in supernatural stuff, but this incident made me believe otherwise. This was about 9 years ago in Samoa. I was playing hide and seek with the other little kids from my mom's village of Satua, Western Samoa. I was quite young then, so I always followed my older cousin around. It was the middle of the night, and most of the kids were used to hiding anywhere in the dark. I wasn't used to it as I was only there for the Christmas holidays. I actually live in Australia. Anyway, we all went to hide. Since we were all hiding in the graveyard, we all found our way around in the light that the church cast onto the graveyard. We all hid in the shadows and waited for the boy. We could all hear the boy coming, so we kept quiet. The boy was pretty loud, so we watched what he was making a fuss about. He walked into the church as he thought that his brother was hiding there. As he walked into the church, he later told us he saw a boy standing right at the front of the altar. He didn't know it was his brother because the boy's back was turned. He ran up and tapped this boy on the shoulder. As soon as he did this, the strange boy disappeared. Our friend fainted. We went home to tell his parents, and we returned with the boy's parents to find him still lying there, dead still. The parents took the boy home, and we never played in the graveyard at night again. We later found out that the boy's brother had been at home the whole time and he hadn't been to the church at all. What really scared us was that the boy who fainted has been ill since that night and he still hasn't recovered to this day. Whoever it was in the church must have been pretty mad that we kids had disturbed him. It was written by somebody named Paulina T. The Christmas Visitor. I had an unusual visitor on Christmas Day, 2008, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Santa Claus. Excuse me. Passing by my house in Wilmington, Indiana, the day started in typical fashion with the opening of gifts around the Christmas tree. I served an early Christmas dinner for family and friends, and everybody departed by 5 p.m., except my sister and brother-in-law who lived with me. They were sleeping in a bedroom at the end of the hall with the door open. I went into my bedroom with my dog Toby and shut the door securely. Toby curled up on the foot of my bed to sleep, like he always does. It was chilly, so I pulled the blankets and comforter up around my head and curled up to nap for an hour. I was just dozing off when I heard the latch on my bedroom door open. Waited several seconds for my sister or brother-in-law to ask me whatever they came to say, but there was no other sound. It was almost 7 p.m., so my bedroom was pitch black. I left lights on in the kitchen and the bathroom, and there were lots of Christmas lights in the living room, so the hallway would have been well lit. I would be able to see whoever was at the door just by lifting my head. I pushed the blankets down and lifted my head from the pillow, but just as I would have been able to see who was in the doorway, an extremely bright light hit me right in the eyes. I shielded my eyes and yelled, "Turn out that expletive delete." Light. I'm just going to say it, fucking light. You're blinding me. The light immediately disappeared and I heard the bedroom door latch close. My bedside light is a touch lamp, so I tapped it on and looked around the room. There is no one in the bedroom except me and Toby. Toby jumped off the bed and went to the door without showing any sign of alarm. At first I wasn't frightened because Toby is a Dutch Shepherd, well trained to be an excellent watchdog and proven personal protection dog. Since Toby was already up, I decided to go let him outside and see what sister and brother-in-law needed. When I went to the hallway, I could see both of them still in bed. I took Toby to the living room to let him outside, and there was nobody there either. So who opened my bedroom door and turned a spotlight on my face? Ordinarily, I'm not a skittish person, and strange noises or lights wouldn't alarm me, but this situation was just too eerie, and the light had made my skin crawl. Let me add that the latch on my bedroom door is broken in such a way that the inside door handle must be jiggled for the latch to pop out and engage. And it makes a very distinctive sound that I'm used to listening for. Because it doesn't latch, the door swings open. I'm absolutely positive that the door was latched closed when I got into bed, just as I'm certain it was the door latch I heard during the incident. When I left the bedroom, the door was latched closed again. I couldn't understand how my sister or brother-in-law could have come into my room and then returned to their own bed and crawled under the covers in the few seconds it took me to reach the hallway. But I figured it had to be one of them since Toby always barks and growls at everybody and everything he doesn't immediately recognize. When brother-in-law got up to get ready for work that night, I asked him what he wanted earlier in the evening when he opened my door. He looked puzzled and said, "I never got up and I certainly never opened your door. I slept soundly the whole time I was in bed." Okay, then I asked Sis, "Did you want something earlier this evening when you opened my door?" She also looked puzzled and said, "I dozed off and on, but I never got out of bed and I never saw or heard anything in the hallway." She leaves their bedroom door open at all times and she faces a hallway so she can see whoever's coming or going throughout the house. So who is my special Christmas visitor, and how did they get in and out so quickly? Like most people, the thoughts of loved ones are always close at hand during the holiday season. When I first went to lie down, I was thinking how happy I was that my small family had enjoyed a pleasant Christmas. But it would have been so much better if my mother and brother had still been alive to share it with us. I would like to think it was my brother's spirit stopping by to say Merry Christmas. I still think of you too. I haven't been able to debunk this strange event to find any kind of rational explanation. I'm half afraid that my heart stopped during my sleep and the light I saw was the bright light people report after near death experiences. Leave it to me to see the stairway to heaven and ruin my chance at eternal paradise by saying, turn that fucking light. I've made a mental note that if I ever see another bright light to clean up my language just in case. Wow. That's pretty crazy. I'm a big believer in spirits having free will, which means that I think even if they do like crossover into heaven or whatever you want to call it, they can come back at will. So I think that I think in many cases either they come back whenever they want to, or they just come back and they stay here. Um, because you gotta consider like the whole point of like the heaven aspect of the spirit world is it's kind of like a reward. Okay. And keep in mind, I don't believe in the Christian version of heaven. Okay, I think it's ridiculous actually, and I'm not trying to bag anybody's religion, but their belief states that if you go to heaven, um, you'll be overjoyed, and you won't be reunited with your loved ones because you won't even remember them. So you'll basically have no memory of your life before, right? Like I know a lot of Christians actually believe that. Wholeheartedly disagree. I think that if we forget, then what's the fucking point? Honestly, I think that if we forget our lives, if we forget our dreams and our goals and our aspirations and the people that we loved, I think if we forget all that and we don't get to heaven, we don't know anybody. What's the fucking point in that? Because if that's what it really is, I definitely don't want to go. Having said that, though, I think that the reason the Bible alludes to that is more political than religion, which is the same reason I think the Bible says a lot of what it says. Because we know as a historical fact that there was a council in a little town outside Rome called Nicaea, and this was shortly after the war against the Christians and the pagans during the time of Emperor Constantine the First, who was said to be the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity, which is total bullshit, by the way. The only reason he converted and was baptized on his deathbed was because he didn't want his country torn apart. And the Christians by that time were by far the strongest faction and would have decimated the rest of the country. Um, but that's neither here nor there. So after his time, this council formed in this little town called Nicaea, which was right outside of the capital city of Rome. I mean, literally right outside the walls of the capital city of Rome. And at Nicaea, this council basically edited the Bible. They took certain parts out, put other things in that weren't there before, and it was all political. It was so that like for example, women could not have power in the church. Um, Gays were condemned, and like if you didn't worship their way in their religion, you were also condemned, and blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. It was all political. It wasn't even about the religion at that point. And even Christians will somewhat acknowledge this fact and admit to what they call Nicene canons, which is the things that were removed from the Bible. Mainly those things that we know of, anyways, deal with the family life of Jesus Christ, showing him as a human being, which I think is absolutely ludicrous, because if in fact he was the Son of God, and if in fact he was the Savior, wouldn't you want that person to be more human? I certainly would. I would like to know that my Savior isn't like some douche nozzle that has no idea what it's like to be a person. Just my thoughts on it. Anyways, so uh, this council like edited everything in the Bible. And the irony of it is where the town of Nicaea was is where now today you can find the Vatican City. So, food for thought. Anyways. This next story is called A Christmas Ghost Caress. It was Christmas time of 1955 or 1995 or 1996 at my aunt's house on a reservation. Oh, it's a native. Yay. Reservation in North Dakota. Some of my family was in the living room watching television. The kids were playing in the rooms or sleeping, and my uncle, aunt, and I were sitting at the table putting a puzzle together. My cousin, who worked at a casino, would come home around midnight or 1 a.m. This night, as she pulled up and was walking toward the house, she looked in the window and saw me sitting at the table, my uncle sitting across from me, and someone standing to the left of me, and someone standing in the corner. So she continued to walk in the house, thinking nothing of it. When she got in, she said her hellos, put her stuff away, and came and joined us at the table. As we were sitting there talking, she looked at me and asked who was standing next to me a few minutes ago and who was in the corner. I told her no one was. She said, yeah, there was. Someone standing next to you. It looked like your mom, and she was playing with your hair. She said this person was running her hand on my hair like a mother does to a child. Kind of freaked me out, being I was probably only 12 or 13 at the time. My cousin swears up and down that someone was standing over me, rubbing my head and watching me put the puzzle together with my aunt and uncle. And there was another person standing behind this person. Got around to thinking it was probably her mom she saw. In my family, we consider our aunts and uncles to be just like our moms and dads. After thinking that it could have been her, it didn't scare me so much. However, we couldn't figure out who the person was standing in the corner, and always around Christmas time, something strange always happens, and we just think it's her visiting us. See that? What I like about that story, I mean, aside from the content itself, because I always like stories like that. But aside from that, what I like about that story is it kind of clues you in a little bit about just a little bit about Native culture and you've probably heard the saying it takes a village. That actually comes from us. It's because in our culture, not so much now in modern times, but like back in the day, you were really raised by the entire tribe. Um, Everybody older than you uh, was aunt or uncle, um, and everybody older than that even was like Etsy or which is grandparent. Um, so I like that story. That it kind of like just clues you in just a little bit, but it does. It's not about that, but it kind of like includes it. It kind of gives you a taste. And more than anything, this show, yes, it's about the paranormal, but it's about the paranormal from a Native American perspective because I'm Native American. Yes, I have white in me also. I don't really acknowledge it. It's not how I was brought up. Um, I may look it, but I'm not. In my heart, in my mind, and in my soul, I'm not white at all, really. Um, Not that there's anything particularly wrong with white people in general. It's just not me. So I'm very proud of my culture and my heritage, and I like sharing it. So there we go. Anyways, this next story, I got to put a disclaimer on this. There are certain things that annoy the shit out of me. Certain inaccuracies in the paranormal world, like people seeing shadow figures and automatically thinking they're evil because they happen to be shadow, that kind of thing. Well, in this particular instance, what is annoying me is the term poltergeist, because poltergeist, in actuality, is the most misused freaking word in the paranormal world's vocabulary. Because what is labeled a poltergeist is really any spirit that moves objects. That is not freaking true. Because the reality is a true poltergeist isn't even a spirit at all. What a real poltergeist is you take somebody who has some kind of psychic gift, okay? Probably one they're not even aware of themselves. Okay, and you add some kind of stress or trauma to that mixture, and boom, perfect storm, you have yourself a poltergeist, which really is just like this big ball of built up psychokinetic energy that takes on a life of its own. And it's going to be around, it's going to be moving stuff, and it's going to be completely wild and random, and you can't get rid of it until the person acknowledges that they have a gift and takes care of whatever is stressing them out. And even then, it doesn't happen overnight. It gradually decreases over time. So it really, I'm trying to watch my language because it's Christmas, but I'm about to throw that out the window. It really fucking annoys me when people mislabel shit. In the paranormal, we have to be exact because what this person is describing, for the love of God, is not a fucking poltergeist. what they're describing is a very powerful spirit, no doubt, but it's not a poltergeist because a poltergeist is not a fucking spirit at all. So I just wanted to make that clear before I get into this. It's name of the story is Poltergeist. It started one Christmas. My parents and I lived in a small home that was around 90 years old. It was in a small town called Bluffton in northeast Indiana. The year would have been 1996. We lived there from the time I was 7 years old to the time I was 19. From the very day that we moved in, I felt that I was not alone. At night, I would lie in bed with the intense feeling that I was being watched. One year around Christmas time, I was having a friend spend the night. The heat had just shut off briefly, and she and I were sitting in the living room watching television when the temperature dropped substantially. As I rose to turn up the heat, the Christmas tree began to shake violently. Ornaments were falling off right and left, and she and I were terrified. We ran upstairs and laid down on my bed. My white cat crawled up with us, and my door was open slightly. When I gazed out at the dark hallway, I was horrified to see a tall white figure run down the hall. I turned to my friend, and she acknowledged that she had seen the exact same thing. She never spent the night there ever again. Years passed and things were uneventful. I became severely ill with a chronic illness and was frequently hospitalized. That's when things began again. After coming near death twice, I began to be able to sense things that no one else could. I once again felt that nagging sensation of being watched. I ignored it this time, and the illness went into remission. Uh, Once again, the activity, if you could call it that, stopped. When I was 18, I began to experience things like never before. Upon the death of my beloved grandfather, I had become preoccupied with death and frequently visited cemeteries. So when I noticed an increase in activity, it started out with the voices. It was like a television had been turned on, and there was a flurry of voices coming from downstairs, or even more frightening, outside my room. My parents were always asleep when this would happen, and the room was right next to mine with a vent, so I could hear my parents sleeping next door. I would get up and check all the rooms, but there was no TV on. Nothing to account for the voices. I was getting more and more scared as the voices started happening every night, and that's when I started seeing shadow figures. They varied in size, but they were always human-shaped except for once. One night I was walking out of my room with my cat in my arms when she began to growl ferociously. She never does this. She's normally an extremely docile cat, and I was shocked to see her acting so. It's when I looked down the hall and saw a shadow the size of a large dog run down the hall quickly. We don't own a dog. We had owned one before I became ill, but were forced to give it away due to the fact that we could no longer provide it with the proper care that it deserved. My cat growled and growled until the shadow disappeared. For all the other times that I saw shadow figures, they never took the form of a dog again. From that point on, the shadow figures were strictly human shaped, some tall, some child-sized, but they frightened me to death. I would lie in my bed at night, tortured by the fear that I was going insane because no one else was experiencing this. When I confessed my experiences to my parents, they took me to a psychiatrist who could find nothing wrong. First of all, just on the off chance that the person that wrote this article should ever see this, I want to apologize right now for what I'm about to say because it's going to be cuss filled and it's going to be blunt. Your parents are fucking idiots and should have been slapped because there is absolutely nothing wrong with you in order for you to go see a psychiatrist. What is going on is you're becoming more sensitive to the paranormal. Okay, folks, can you hear me? You see me? I think I gotta do that thing again. Hello. Let's see. Sorry, folks. Oh, you can't see me now? Okay. Awesome. Um, so back to where I was. The shadow figures that this person was seeing, they varied in size. And the one time it appeared as a dog, and their idiot parents sent them to see a shrink when they told them about it. And then it goes on. It was moving a bunch of stuff and turning lights on and off. And he goes on to say things would get so bad sometimes that I would be forced to sleep in my parents' bedroom like I was a child. In August of 2008, we moved to a new house far away from the old house. Not experienced anything abnormal here, and the aura is much lighter. Perhaps it was my dabbling in the paranormal. I tried communicating with spirits at frequented cemeteries and tried to provoke ghosts that had caused all the grief in that house. But one night I went back there to get some of my things, and as I was leaving, I saw a dark figure run across the yard. I drove away and never looked back. I don't like that story at all. I don't. Um, See, this is the problem with those that just dabble in the paranormal. Um, as I like to put it, anyways, is they're ruled by fear. And say what you want, but Frank Herbert got it right when he wrote Dune and said that fear is the mind killer. That is absolutely true, and nowhere more so than in the paranormal. If you're ruled by fear, everything's going to be negative. Everything. It doesn't matter how uplifting it might be otherwise, because you're afraid of it. To you, it's going to seem negative. Uh, Anyways, on to some fun stuff. Uh, these are all paranormal sightings dealing with Santa Claus. I'm not kidding. There are many full grown, mature, logical adults who will swear to you that as children they actually saw Santa Claus in their homes at night. There are just a few of those stories. First one's called Santa Stuffs the Stockings. When I was 9 years old, I'm 30 now, uh, I could not get to sleep on Christmas Eve because I was excited about presents and wondered if my parents had anything to do with the gifts they had received from Santa the year before. That night it was hot because the heater was on. I lived in Texas, so I got thirsty. Also, I was wanting to spy. I got out of bed and cracked open my door to make sure no one was out in the living room, so that way I could get something to drink. Excuse me. When I opened the door, I saw someone bent over and he stood up. It was Santa Claus, dressed in red and white getup. Something strange was that I could see the Christmas lights from the tree shining through him. He's taking the stockings down off the mantel and placing them on the coffee table. When he started to turn around and put the next stocking on the table, I closed the door and jumped into bed. The next morning, I woke up and told my sister what I'd seen. I told her where he had put the stockings. When we went into the living room, the stockings were where I said he had put them. We both turned and looked at each other and froze for a moment. From then on, I've told everyone that I believe in Santa. That's from someone named Misty G. Next story is a short one called Santa and an Elf. Happened near Seattle, Washington on Christmas Eve 1957 or 58. My mom was at the kitchen window and she yelled for my sister and me. We were around 5 and 7 to come look. There was Santa and an elf carrying a big brown bag walking down the middle of the street. My dad went running out the door to see if Santa would come say Merry Christmas to his kids, but Santa, the elf, and the big brown bag had vanished. Interesting. Um, Santa at the bedroom door. It was 1961 on Christmas Eve. We were living in Boardman, Ohio. There we go, Ohio. My bedroom was at the end of the house. I went to sleep on Christmas Eve. I don't know what time it was, but I know it was very late when I suddenly woke up. I was staring at my bedroom door, which was catty corner from my bed. The door slowly opened and I squinted my eyes shut just a bit because I didn't want my mother or father to catch me up in the middle of the night. There was a nightlight in the hallway and one behind the dresser in my room, so there was some light. I was so astonished, however, at who opened the bedroom door, I found myself looking at a man dressed in a red suit. He had white trim around his waist like fur, a long white beard, and was wearing a Santa hat. He had red pants and black boots. If I closed my eyes, I could still see Santa standing in my door. It made such an impression on me. He stood there and looked at me for a few seconds, and closed the door. Pulled the blankets over my head for a while. I was so scared. Finally, I looked out, but no one was there. The next day, I asked my mother if she or my father had been out of bed the previous night. My mother said no. In fact, my sister was only 4 months old, and my mother said she had slept through the night for the first time, and neither of my parents had gotten up. They were tired and they both slept. So I don't know who or what looked in my bedroom that night. I told my mother I saw Santa, and she got really mad at me and told me that I did not. But I know what I saw. It was Santa Claus, and I swear the story did happen. I know I wasn't dreaming. It's from Carrie K. Interesting. Like, it's almost like there's this subculture of like Santa sightings almost. Now, me just being, playing devil's advocate here, I think in most of these stories, except for the first one where they could see like Christmas lights around, um, I think that they actually saw a person dressed as Santa, probably another family member that wanted to surprise the family or whatever, and somehow made it up in their mind that what they saw was a spirit or what have you. But speaking of Ohio, I do know another story. This isn't from an article. This is one I was told, and it is a Santa story, sort of. Um, there was a gentleman who if you've seen the Cleveland news, you've probably heard of this guy. I don't recall the gentleman's actual name, but he for a long time was on the news almost every year, and he actually legally um, had his name changed at one point to Chris Kringle. Uh, he was an older gentleman. He actually had the full on white beard. He looked like Santa, and he would dress up as Santa every year. And he would work with like uh, children's hospitals and charitable organizations and stuff like that. And, he was like your quintessential really nice guy. And back in 2012, so not that long ago, but long enough, he passed away. Well, every year since then, he's been spotted uh, both in the hospital, in the parking lot for the hospital, and in his home. Um, Not only that, people have heard him, and they know it's him because um, it looked like he used to hum like Christmas carols, and people have reported that sound in his home and at the hospitals he worked in. Um, Jeremy said drunk uncle in chat. um, yeah, I've got a few of those stories too. Um, but I think he's referring to like children seeing a drunk uncle dressed as Santa Claus. It could be. Um, but he always appears dressed as Santa. And I think it's because it was his favorite time of year. I mean, like he loved it. I mean, if there was anybody on the face of the earth that I've ever heard of, anyways, that really kind of embodied what Santa Claus is really about, it was this guy, you know. And he's like one of those guys. Like he's gone now, but you know, you kind of wish you could have gotten to know him. You know what I mean? Like, just that kind of nice guy. You know, just someone who is a joy to be around. There aren't a lot of those people, unfortunately, left in the world. So when one passes on, we take notice, and uh, the fact that he's so into what he did and what he was about that he's still doing it kind of says volumes about the guy. Now, for a slightly darker story, um, here's my problem with this next story, and I think it's because I think a lot does have to do with what's popular in culture. Um, like for people over the age of 17 right now, um, their morbid curiosity or their macabre sense of style or gothic tendencies or what have you, a lot of people are getting more and more interested in Krampus. Now, if you don't know who Krampus is, I'm going to tell you. Krampus comes from uh, Germany. and Norway. Basically, your whole like Norse part of the world, let's say. And Krampus was like the evil twin of Santa, basically. Like, while Santa gave presents to all the good boys and girls, Krampus was punishing them. But he wasn't just punishing them; he was eating them. So, like he's kind of like a cannibalistic version, I guess, of Santa. But because more and more people have clued in through, like books and TV and movies and whatnot about Krampus, more and more people are starting to report sightings of him. Uh, a few of the ones I've heard about uh, within like the past 2 years, there's been two I know of in England, one in Suffolk or Sussex, and one in London. There was another one uh, in Russia where supposedly a child was attacked. I don't know enough about it to say one or the other. That's just the claim. Um, Another one in California, which I kind of half suspect is somebody was on something. Uh, but there you have it. You know, but I have noticed a certain trend. I think certain people are very susceptible to suggestion by popular culture, whether it be TV or books or radio or whatever. And I do know that they did like a Krampus thing. They did a Krampus thing for, let's see, uh, Grimm did a Krampus episode. Um, I think Sleepy Hollow did one too. Even CSI had a Krampus episode where somebody was trying to embody Krampus. So I, you know, I kind of feel like like a lot of it is like latching onto popular culture. But there were sightings even before they were popular, and this is also like the same thing with Slender Man. I know Darkness Radio and everybody's reported that Slender Man was invented by, that website Creepypasta, and it is somewhat true. But there has been Thin Man long before that, um, which is kind of the same thing, although slightly different, because Slender Man, um, has existed for probably a couple hundred years. Or not Slender Man, but Thin Man, which is basically the same thing. And I think it's kind of the same thing with this whole Krampus phenomenon. I think that it was reported a lot back in the day because it's popular, and I think it's being reported a lot today because it's popular. I don't know if that means that they're not genuine experiences or they are. I don't know. Um, but I do think that there's a link there somewhere between popular culture and sightings of different phenomena. And I think Krampus just happens to be the new one, especially around this time of year. By the way, I wanted to mention this before at the top of the program, but we've got about 12 minutes left, so I'm going to do it now. There will not be a show Wednesday, in case you didn't hear me before. Wednesday is Christmas Eve, and it is also my birthday. So yeah, won't be a Wednesday night show. I might be drunk. I don't know. We'll see. Depends on if I get alcohol for my birthday. In any case, back to the good stuff. I have a kind of an uplifting, like paranormal Christmas story, and this may be the last one for tonight. I don't know if it's true. I choose to believe it's true because I choose to believe in positive, uplifting things in the world, especially in the world of the paranormal. Um, Far more than I do anything negative, even though I've dealt with the negative quite a bit, in my 25-year career as a paranormal investigator. Um, but there's been far more positive, and I think this is one of those things. Um, this happened in the 1980s. I think it was around 84. Um, this wasn't someone I knew directly. It was kind of like a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing. But the story got around, and I actually did meet the person it was about and asked them about it, and they confirmed that this happened, and they completely believed that it happened. And after talking to them, I'm inclined to believe them. I mean, like, they were convincing. Um, but anyways, it was around 1984, 1985, during summer, or not summer vacation, Christmas vacation. Um, this kid and his family went to Colorado. It wasn't Aspen. It was one of the other like resort towns. I don't remember which one. Might have been Vail, but either way, they went to like a ski resort town to spend Christmas there because it was like a big thing with his dad. He loved to ski and stuff, and they would have like Christmas at this lodge like every year. So dad was off skiing, um, mom was out shopping, and the kid got bored just sitting, inside the lodge. So he got himself all boned up and went out walking around and ended up getting lost in the woods. He was actually lost in the woods. He ended up like miles from the lodge and nobody could find him. And he was lost. He was scared. He was, starting to go hungry. And at one point was starting to, freeze and passed out. And he said that he woke up sometime after that and he was really warm. He couldn't see much. There was like a campfire, and you could see that he was in a cave, um, and he could sense there were things around him, but he couldn't really see them very clearly. Um, but he felt it, like fur, which initially he thought was a blanket, and it wasn't until like the last day he was there, which was the day before he was found, that he realized that he was inside a cave with Sasquatch. Bigfoot had saved this kid's life. And It's undocumented. You'll never find a story about it. The kid absolutely refused to tell authorities anything about it, other than to say he found a cave and started a fire, which he, like, publicly, he took credit for it all, which there's no way. I mean, like, in 1984, he wasn't even old enough to know how to start a fire. Really. I mean, well, that's probably not true. I mean, he was like around 8 or 9, so maybe. But he didn't know how to start a fire. Like, even his parents will tell you that. So, and has been proven, or not proven, but it has been highly suggested, let's say, that Bigfoot knows how to start a fire. In any case, it was the day he was going to be rescued by humans, anyways. And it was his last day with him, and he finally felt well enough to get up and walk around, and he went to the opening of this cave that they were in. And it was kind of like up on the way he described it is it was a cave, but it was up on like an incline, like on this mountain, and it kind of went on a shelf, and then went down into like a bowl, and then on the other side of the bowl, and probably a couple miles away, is where the lodge was. And he said he came out on that shelf, and he was at the edge of the shelf, and he heard something behind him, and he turned around, and there was a juvenile Sasquatch standing behind him. And he said he didn't feel threatened, he didn't feel scared, he didn't feel anything like that. He felt warm. He felt like they didn't really want him to go, but they understood it. Is how he put it. So, like, he found his way back to the lodge. I guess they brought him close enough to the lodge that he could find it, because he could see, like, I guess, smoke, which there's inside the main lodge building, like in almost every, ski lodge I know of anyways, there's always a fireplace. So, he found his way back, and he told me this story. He said, you know what, I totally believe in Sasquatch. And I said, well, you know what, that makes two of us, because my people have had stories about Sasquatch for thousands of years. There's no way. Like, you gotta understand something. I won't say to all natives, but to a lot of natives, Sasquatch is a foregone conclusion. We already know he's real. We don't need to prove it. We've seen him. Like, our relationship with Sasquatch is so close that we won't even talk about it most of the time. The only reason I talk about it is because, well, I have a show. And I kind of talk about a lot of things that would be kind of taboo to most natives. And this just happens to be one of them. So I have no doubt he experienced what he experienced. No doubt, none. And I think that the feeling he got from them was what most people would get from him if they weren't so scared. Honestly, I believe that. I believe that Well, I have my own theories about what Sasquatch is. Um, which aren't really, steeped in the native lore about it. But uh, I think, Sasquatch is an elemental. It can physically interact with the living world, but they're not, and they can be, completely manifested. In other words, solid, like solid, but in actuality, they're like an elemental spirit, which could explain how they can disappear, so suddenly. But that's just my theory. In any case, this guy swears up and down that this happened, and I, for one, truly believe. I mean, and it's not the only story I've ever heard like that. But what's special about this one is it happened during Christmas, and it just so happens that the day he got back to the lodge happened to be Christmas Day. So, I mean, you can make out of that what you want. In any case, folks, that is my time. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Once again, there will not be a show on Wednesday, for it is my birthday and Christmas Eve. So, there you have it. All right, my pack, my tribe. Until next time, peace out.